Parents and kids, Bill Nye claims that creationism is not appropriate for children. I say, oh really? What does factual history and real science actually support? What is your real agenda, Bill? Part 2 of 3 looks at the natural conclusion of the atheistic message of evolutionism and Darwinism using pseudoscience. The history and practice of evil evolution / Darwinian philosophy. Charles Darwin's book, entitled On the Origin of the Species by Means of Natural Selection, and pay attention to the second part of the title, or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life, was first published on Thursday, the 24th of November, 1859, and then translated into German in 1860. In 1848, the Communist Manifesto was jointly written by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. In 1861, Karl Marx wrote to his friend Ferdinand Lassalle, "Darwin's work is most important and suits my purpose in that it provides a basis in natural science for the historical class struggle. Despite all the shortcomings, it is here that, for the first time, teleology in natural science is not only dealt a mortal blow, but its rational meaning is empirically explained." Oh, really? Note, both Lenin and Stalin praised Darwin for liberating them from encumbering theology. The book entitled The Kaiser's Holocaust, Germany's Forgotten Genocide and the Colonial Roots of Nazism, written by David Olugsoga and Caspar W. Erickson. It documents the evils of social Darwinism spawned scientific racism and colonialized ethnic cleansing practiced in the German colony of Southwest Africa in the latter decades of the 19th century through to the early 20th century. The Herero and Namibian genocide is considered to have been the first genocide of the 20th century. It took place between 1904 and 1907 in German Southwest Africa, modern-day Namibia, during the conquest for Africa. The late Stephen Jay Gould, a notable evolutionist and communist, claimed that Darwinism would liberate the human spirit. Darwin's message of the survival of the fittest has provided the rationale for the evil actions by liberated believers. The most dishonorable specialist of Darwinism wrote, "He who will live must fight. He who does not wish to fight in this world where permanent struggle is the law of life has not the right to exist." His book was Mein Kampf, written in 1925 and 26. His name was Adolf Hitler. There are several books documenting the evil caused by evolution and social Darwinism, the ensuing consequence of the vile philosophy. In the book From Darwin to Hitler, Richard Weikart determines that Darwinism was the key role not only in the rise of eugenics, but also in euthanasia, infanticide, abortion, and racial extermination, all eventually embraced by the Nazis. It's estimated that in the 20th century between 120 million and 150 million human beings met with untimely death at the will of evil, atheistic, evolutionistic governments that used Darwinism, evolutionism in some manner to justify their actions, i.e. scientific genocide. Darwinian philosophy is foundational in the modern-day genocide of more than 60 million of the unborn when abortion becomes respectable for sexual freedom at the expense of the life of the child denied a chance to live. Every human social ill is more severe and frequent since the atheistic notions of naturalism/materialism or evolutionism and Darwinism and scientism that led to atheistic type worldviews trying to liberate themselves from God's authority over their lives. Pause this video to review some of the social metrics with the ever-increasing severity of each social ill listed. Who is taking responsibility for this human suffering that is the natural conclusion of Darwinism and scientism?
Shortly after time began, and even before God created man, an angel in heaven overcome with pride tried to swing the other angels to his side, jealous of the one who made him, and foolish enough to try to replace him. So Lucifer and his demon rebellion suffered a heavenly deportation. The lust for power and authority is where it all begins for you and me. The innate desire to become a god is a woman, I swear demons try. It's easy to tangle in the swim of the sea. The spider doesn't want to be alone in the heat. You may think it's a gradual decline, but what you don't know, the plan's right on time. What's happening to the world today? It's more than a gradual decay. It's a master plan to destroy every man. So we gotta wake up and take a stand. Morality is slipping away. It's more than a gradual decay. Now a moral man is considered a fool, and our kids are forbidden to pray in school. With busted hearts and broken homes, latchkey kids left home alone. It used to be that moral things were sacred. Now morality's determined by how it's rated. No wonder we're so easily deceived, cause we don't know the truth about what we believe.
Darwin's On the Origin of Species by Natural Selection, in 1859, included this illustration that metaphorically and without experiential scientific verification deceptively suggests that the phylogeny, the relatedness among species, shows evolution by the use of a graphic in the shape of a tree that he called the tree of life. Darwin didn't have any experiential evidence for the fairy tale notion of organic evolution, beginning with the alleged chemical elements in warm pools of water spontaneously generating the common ancestor of all, followed by the alleged transmutation of the common ancestor into every organism that ever lived, that is deceptively illustrated in so-called evolutionary trees of life. Out of the enthusiastic atheistic sort determined to eliminate God from his creation came the fraudulent workers to deceive the public, as it still occurs today. You will meet the father of the fraudulent science, papers, and evidence. This is a modern-day illustration of the deceptive phylogenetic tree known as the Hillis plot by David Mark Hillis, built on genome sequenced, founded only on the presumption that the transmutation of one kind of organism into another kind of organism occurred in the unseen, irreproducible history of the evolutionary fairy tale story. Meet the father of fraudulent evolutionary evidence/knowledge. This German, Ernst Heinrich Philipp August Haeckel, is the notorious pseudoscientist who enthusiastically produced fraudulent work, drawings, carvings, and skeletons to promote Darwin's notion of evolution in speaking tours, lectures, and his books. In 1868, a German scientific journal carelessly published many pages of his fabrications without verification. Haeckel's book of deliberate fraudulent work, known as The History of Creation, 1876, was read enthusiastically by Germans. In his book he wrote, "This theory, Darwin's, is indispensable for the consistent completion of the non-miraculous history of creation." Ian Taylor wrote in his book In the Minds of Men, he, Haeckel, became Darwin's chief European apostle, proclaiming the gospel of evolution with evangelistic fervor not only to the university intelligentsia, but to the common man by popular books and to the working classes by lectures in rented halls. Haeckel fabricated several trees of life that enthusiastically go beyond Darwin's basic branching line drawing over thousands of generations using letters and numbers. He added pseudo-scientific authority with scientific-sounding names to help Darwin's fairy tale story. Does real science and evidence support organic evolution? Hear what Stephen Jay Gould had to say. He's an evolutionist, and over the years realizes the extreme rarity of transitional forms in the fossil record persists as a trade secret of paleontology. The evolutionary trees that adorn our textbooks have data only at the tips and nodes of their branches. The rest is inference, however reasonable, not the evidence of fossils. We fancy ourselves as the only true students of life's history, yet to preserve our favorite account of evolution by natural selection, we view our data as so bad that we never see the very process we profess to study. Darwin's Origin of the Species hinted at the notion of recapitulation, that embryo development retraces evolution's progress, i.e., now known as ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, or embryological parallelism. Thomas H. Huxley, Darwin's bulldog, included drawings of canine and human embryos in an 1863 book he wrote. Darwin placed those same drawings in his 1871 book, Descent of Man, but the fanatical Ernst Haeckel in Germany snatched the opportunity, announced it as his so-called biogenetic law. Above is Haeckel's scandalous drawings showing 8 different embryos: fish, salamander, turtle, chicken, hog, calf, rabbit, and human in 3 stages of development, with incredible similarity in the first tailbud stage. As published by him in Anthropogeny in Germany 1874, is more atheistic enthusiasm to fabricate evidence for his hero Charles Darwin's fantasy of biological evolution. Richardson's photographs on the bottom row compared to Haeckel's deliberate forgeries on the top row show how the embryos really look at the same tailbud stage. Gavin de Beer, in A Century of Darwin, 1958, wrote, "Seldom has an assertion like that of Haeckel's theory of recapitulation, facile, tidy, and plausible, widely accepted without critical examination, done so much harm to science." Ernst Haeckel was eventually charged with fraud several times. Wilhelm His Sr., 1831 to 1904, a German embryologist, in a detailed publication in 1874, exposed the hoax. But why is his and other fraudulent work still persisting in textbooks, lectures, and in every form of media to deceive the public without it being exposed and corrected?
Settle down at the Berlin Wall. Freedom in America's about to take a fall. Crack babies die, rotting in pain while the dealer counts his capital gain. You wonder where our country went. Our babies dead and our morals bent. It's gonna get worse before it gets better. We can beat this rap if we fight together. Been arrested for praying on a public walk. Soon they'll tell us not to pray